Papa can, I mean, Hero, can you hear me?
Rachel, I sure can.
That was amazing.
We could do it all night long, couldn't we?
That was amazing. That made me so happy.
Rachel,
welcome.
Yes, I can.
Well, on that note, literally, welcome. I'm just clasping my bra at the back. So real and so honest. Welcome to Getting Juicy with
Rachel Rosen
and Hero Prince.
Oh my God! Stop.
We're on opposite sides there. My God. Woo,
I know.
look, you can
always
see
complimenting each other.
You can see the ring light in my glasses. Okay, let's.
Oh, are you going to heaven?
What the fuck? Well, yeah, not now. Jesus.
Well, no, of course not.
Jesus. I was gonna say Jesus Murphy. Oh, and speaking of, well, that was the perfect segue.
That was the perfect segue. Such a perfect segue.
To our guest that's popping on momentarily and trying to connect to audio.
So fantastic. Perfect timing.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. You always know, show business. It's a curtain call. Let's go.
I love it. Well, I actually always say that because we'll tell Mary in a second. One of my best friends, her last name is Murphy as well. So I'm like, Jesus, Murphy.
How do I get onto there?
Oh, you're so sweet. We can hear you, Mary.
You can? Okay.
Yeah.
You can tell I haven't done this now since like a few times when COVID starts, but now I don't know how to, let's see.
We can't see you, but
I mean, like your rectangle looks beautiful though. I mean, the perfect shade of black.
Hold on, I need help, huh?
I wonder, okay, so, but it looks like your camera must be, okay, this is a really dumb question, Mary, okay? Like super dumb question. Do you have anything covering your camera?
Do I?
That's the dumbest question ever.
No,
but
that didn't do anything, did it?
No, but you still look gorgeous though.
That's all they say is black.
Oh man, we want to see you. I wonder, are you on? Oh,
there we go.
I don't see you guys now. Hold on,
really?
honey, don't go anywhere.
Oh, we're not going anywhere. It's all good. I like.
I can't see you.
Oh, that's so interesting.
You have a helper. I love it.
Okay, how do we fix this thing?
There we go.
Yay!
Now we're almost in business, huh?
Oh my gosh, we were.
This is the best.
This is perfect.
Oh, I love it. I love
Humanity. This is exactly what we're about. Perfect.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
let's see if this will help. Maybe not.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love your ruffles. I love your flair.
Totally. Always, never a dull moment. Oh,
Voila!
so nice. So lovely to chat and to have you.
Where's my headphones? No.
I don't. You sound perfect. Probably better than these. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule, Mary, to just join us and to be welcome into, well, I would say our home. So really, I guess it's a couple gray walls.
I know. That's my couch.
How are you doing?
Yellow.
It's perfect. Nice and warm, just like yourself.
Where are you? And I should say, I'm Rachel. So very nice to meet you. And
nice
this is
you.
Hero. And
nice to meet you.
Hero, nice to meet you.
We always like to tell our guests that we are recording right now. Yeah. So we just, and the little blunder in the beginning was actually quite adorable. It's totally up to you whether you want that to be on or not. Well, it's as real. I love it.
We got it. Cut and deliver.
I don't know if you ever remember that we did I was doing my first time the Facebook Live going through the hallways with Kat, and both of us walking along, talking along. I said, "Oh, I don't see anything. It's not working." And she's like bending over, and I'm bending over, and I hit a button, and all of a sudden, me and Kat's face were like down into it. We're like, "Ah!" I said, "We're on."
Oh, that's
I love
That
it.
was live. I couldn't do anything about that or fix it.
No, that's just real life. The show has to go on, right?
I
That's
think
right.
though, I think though that's what people are loving, with, I mean, one of the silver linings, I guess, of COVID. I know that was pre-COVID though, correct?
That's correct. That was
Yeah,
like in the start of Facebook.
totally. But what
Way
I'm
back then.
totally, but what I'm finding though is that, because of COVID, so many more people are, jumping on there and creating content that had never done it before, that those, those like yourself or even like, big name celebrities, they're all blundering, right? Because they don't have any, staff
That's
or anybody
correct.
around. And it's actually,
We've always had our people. Now we have
right.
no people.
But
Wow.
it's a beautiful thing for, people like us to watch, because you're all real. We're all real people. And you were, a part of one of the most iconic, quote unquote, reality TV shows, right?
Yeah.
So, now that everybody's doing, their quote unquote real thing, like it's kind of nice to see, right? So we didn't really get a chance to introduce you just before you popped on, so I think that most people know who you are, but I feel like maybe you don't really get a chance to introduce yourself very often, do you?
Oh, wow.
I think
Hello, I'm Mary Missy. And hopefully, so you think you can dance is coming back, but we don't know yet.
yeah, that's actually, and that's, so the last season was 2019, is that right?
That's correct.
Right, so that was,
We were down to our top 50 of 2020, and yeah, we were greenlit, and we were doing videos, and producers were choosing contestants that would get in front of us in Hollywood. So we were down to the top 50, and the next move would have been to fly everybody out. And of course, that was around March, and everything hit the fan then.
oh, okay, see, I didn't know
Wow.
that. Okay.
That is well, and also, I mean, you see other shows that are coming out, and just because it's fresh on my mind, like The Amazing Race, and they show like these first 3 episodes were filmed prior to COVID, and now we can resume the show. But what's fascinating about these productions, right, especially with dancers, I can imagine. Now I'm far from a dancer, but I'm a yoga teacher. But similar kind of body awareness. I mean, a year and a half or 2 years for a dancer is a long time.
It's a
So
long time, because as you can
amount.
see on the show, that the dancers can improve unbelievably in a short period of time. So you can imagine 3 years now, will the dancers, if we get greenlit, will the ones that were in the top 50 before, or will we be starting all over? And I really feel bad for the kids that just turned 18, because they've been doing, most of these kids have been watching the show since they were 3 years old. So they're preparing, they're doing, some of them knew at a very early age that they were going to do every single thing to get on to So You Think You Can Dance. And
Yeah.
so I feel really bad for those ones in 18, and now of course they're 19, they're going to be 20. And then you're going to have a whole fresh, if we get greenlit, we're going to have a whole fresh crop of 18-year-olds that have done the exact same thing.
Oh, that's so true. Like I didn't even think about,
Yes.
okay, time as a dancer and just kind of how that taxes on your body, but age. I mean,
looking back at that too, wow, what an amazing body of talent we would have to choose from. It would be, just unbelievable. I think it would be the most difficult top 20 of all time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it was funny because I was thinking of the people that really inspired me growing up as a teenager, and people that were, and reality shows have been such a big part of my culture and self-identity. And so remember watching, dance when it came out, and I'm turning 30. So I would have been in high school, that pivotal moment of development when you're learning and growing and developing. And of course, those personalities, and whether if it's based on being queer or not, us gays love personalities that are outspoken, that are authentic, that are transparent, that are not afraid to be truly themselves, and so when I thought about people that I wanted to connect with, and I was thinking, what's Mary Murphy up to these days? And so I watched back some of the old seasons and stuff, from season 2 onward. I'm like, you know what, bitch, just message her, see if she's around. It was literally just like that. And I texted Rachel, I'm like, I'm doing it, I'm going up the hot tamale train, I'm gonna message her, what do I have to lose? So when you wrote back and you're like, yes, absolutely, first and foremost, thank you. for making this gay boy's dream come true. Secondly, a lot of gratitude for all the work that you have done and the advocacy you have done. And also so much that you have done in your life that me and Rachel were able to learn about you from doing our research about you is really incredible and impeccable. Because these things that you may have experienced, they partially define you, but at the same time, they're not who you are fully today because you have risen from those things in your life. And it shows in the way that you present yourself and the way that you advocate for people, the way you empower people to be who they are as dancers and as human beings. So I just want to get that really straight out of the gate before we go on our story with you today. And I thank you for all your work. It really means a lot to me.
I gotta show you one sweetie pie here. She is. Hi.
Oh
my God! Hi. Hello. Are you wearing ruffles too?
Mini schnauzer, miniature schnauzer, or
this is, come here, little girl.
Oh,
they're pawing at me. So
oh my God! Look at the face. Look at the face. Oh, so cute. Hello, Roxy.
Now Roxy, like, is as in like from Chicago, or are we?
Well, kind of, yeah. She's feisty. I originally named her Mambo, but after a while, watching how, she's
my
Roxy.
Oh my goodness. And Schnauzer, right?
Yeah, toy Schnauzer.
Oh God, so adorable. Actually, funny, this is like the weirdest kind of segue, but just because you talked about the Schnauzer, funny enough, because, well, no, I know, whatever. We just kind of shoot the shit. But my uncle, who was the director of the National Ballet Company of Canada.
Whoa.
I know. So there's some I'm see, and Hero's got the like reality TV vibe going, and I watched you religiously, but it's the dance, like there's some dance kind of background, but he had a Schnauzer anyway. So weird transition into that. Bizarre transition. But I guess what Hero was also kind of getting at is, we know you from Mary Murphy, from Hot Tamale Train, all that kind of stuff. And only if you're comfortable, we kind of want to know behind or beyond, so you think you can dance. I don't know if maybe it's been a while since you've, talked more about
what do you want to know?
Right. Well, I feel like you're always, I feel like just
pretty much an open book. I'm like Forrest Gump. I'll sit down on the bench and tell somebody my whole life story.
Okay. Well, I love
us. My mother never said a single word about anything, and I had to find out from years later the horrific type situation that she grew up in Ireland,
really?
Irish orphanages.
Wow.
And her mother died when she was very young, and she had to stay in that orphanage until she was 18.
Holy crap.
Never talked about it, never complained about a single thing, had 4 of us screaming kids. And by the way, she was actually quite the screamer too. She could scream louder than I could. We were all big from the Midwest, and we were all big on football. And so that's religion. Every Sunday, go to church, watch football. Monday night, football. Of course, back then there wasn't Thursday night football.
Right.
It would have been Saturday as college football. And in Ohio, that's just what we did. And most people did.
Interesting.
I would hate for somebody to have driven or walked by my house during football season. We're all screaming bloody murder. And my 5'2" Irish mother was screaming and putting the hex on them and everything.
Oh, I love it.
It's what we love.
And I love diving into this just because, like, doing some research on yourself, there's a lot of interviews, you're talking about the dancers, you're talking about all this stuff, but I'm like, who are you? Because I feel like, I don't know if you've done a lot of interviews where you talk really deeply about you and your upbringing and how you got to where you are. Maybe it's been a while. I don't know, but.
Well, it's been a while. Yeah. Just doing an interview. I've been very busy trying to save my dance studio, which is a big 12,000 square foot facility. So, that itself we can talk about later, and that's quite a journey, for
absolutely
me to go around and do everything in my power to save that for the dance community here. And so far we've made it through, but it's still not easy for any business out there. My gosh, it's still tough. And of course, with this new round of Omicron that has wheeled itself in,
I know.
But we're still open and we're still going. And of course, for a long time, California was on a severe lockdown. And I would eventually, after everybody else, sitting on the couch and watching every show 24 hours a day, because I do have a lot of stamina. I can watch TV 24/7 and got hooked to all these shows. And after about 2 or 3 weeks of just eating everything under the sun and watching TV, I was like, what am I doing? I've got someplace to go. I'll go down to my dance studio. Nobody can stop me if I'm in there by myself. So like going out into a foreign planet, when I went out onto the road, there was no cars at that time. It was just completely empty. And I was like, geez, am I doing something illegal now? But I went down there and then just laid there on the floor all by myself for a while, and then said, okay, now I can clean, I can decorate, I can straighten up the files, and I can start thinking about my 30th anniversary bash, which of course it never happened. So,
and it was just, you beat me to the punch, because I was going to ask you how long. I feel like you've had that studio for quite a long time, and there you go. You just told me about that.
This year will be my 32nd year.
Wow.
But that was the 30th anniversary that we were hoping to really just take it out of the ballpark. But last year we had, a lot of galas, like 3 galas that ended up being quite successful. And
that's good.
And I ran a couple that were like so ridiculous. It would be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. One person's going to come in. I'm going to hire a judge. You're going to dance in front of the judge. And then we're going to take notes. You're allowed to bring 2 people in. And then you got to get out right then.
Right.
Like, bam, 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 bam.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with your studio as well, of course, that's a labor of your love, of your passion, of your history, all the culture that you've absorbed from your exposure into the industry. And just from little bits of research that we've done and stuff, of course, like you started out as a dancer and then discovered your way into ballroom dance. And I'm curious to know, what was the very first childhood memory you had when it came to movement, the art of expression of who Mary is? Like, where did that piece of the heart come from?
I think, I grew up with 3 brothers, and I'm sure you've read all about that. And my brothers were all into sports, and I was too. So my young adult life was all about, mainly for me, track and field, because it was the only thing that we were allowed to do in my area as a woman. That's all we were allowed until my senior year, when we were allowed to do volleyball and basketball. So I joined that as well. We had a radio club my senior year, so I was in that. Whatever club there was, or any organization. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a runny nose.
No problem.
I'm sick.
No.
I might be. No.
Hey, that's a whole other topic of conversation. Yeah. Oh my God.
I would say in my early young adult life that I would major in extracurricular activities. I wanted to be part of everything and do everything. I did not want to study. I would be I know my high school has asked me before to come back and talk, but I would be a terrible spokesperson, I think, for the kids at that school, in the fact that I like to sleep. I'm not going to lie. I like to sleep during class. And I wanted to give it my all in all the other different areas. I wanted to be in the plays. I wanted to be in choir. I played musical instruments. Me and my brothers were all drummers. And eventually, when I got to high school, then they kicked me out of the drum section. They were beating me up, literally, with their drumsticks. And it was a massive drum section. So there was things that they didn't play. I'd play the bells. I can play timpani. I'd play bass drum, whatever it was. But they weren't having it. And so I went to the band director, and this was my first experience of telling him what was going on. I showed him all the bruises on my arms and begged him, "Could you please make them stop?" And he said, "Well, it's time for you to find another instrument." And he was not going to stick up for me or put me in the drum section. So I was like, wow. Gosh, I thought they would get in trouble. And I feel like he was punishing me.
Yeah.
That I would have to find an instrument. So I took it seriously, and then I tried out every instrument. I ended up playing the bassoon.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huge.
And played that for a few years, and I actually liked it. And I made all state band in California or Ohio, went down to Ohio State. We were 2 kids from each division of a band were invited to be, and I was first chair bassoonist at that Ohio State. And then they offered me a partial scholarship to go to school there. And I ended up wanting to go to OU to run track. And so that's, I didn't really know of anything else to do. There was no dancing going on in my town whatsoever. I've said this in interviews before. It was more like Footloose.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
A lot of religion and nothing wrong with that. And I love where I grew up. I love how idyllic it was. I love that there's a canal and a river that ran through it. And I was a river rat. I was Huckleberry Mary. I built rafts in the summertime, some floated, some didn't. And figures, ice, I wouldn't call it figure skating. I'd call it ice skating in the winter and jumping logs and building, little, just all kinds of ramps and things and tobogganing in the wintertime and, under in the lake and all kinds of things like that. So I felt like, my father was a school teacher. My mother stayed at home. And my father was a West Virginia hillbilly, by the way, in the true sense of the word. He grew up in a holler, Butcher's Fork, which was way, way, way back in the holler. And they didn't have running water. They didn't have electricity when my father grew up. And my grandfather was kind of, what do they call those guys? Water well, oil caterers or something like that. I can't remember the right term that they used back in those days. And very strong, stern man. And my father ended up, I don't know how, I should have asked my father, well, how did you get out of there? But he went to Ohio State. He was in the military. He met my mother in England. And my mom had left the convent, and I heard that was because she was laughing too hard all the time. When you turn 17, you have to leave or you become a nun. And so she was a nun for 6 months.
Really?
And I only heard it from another woman that was hunting my mother down for years and years and years, that was there with her. And she was the one that told me that my mother was so kind and was helping the elderly. It was where they take care of the elderly. And that when the bell tolls, she was supposed to run immediately. And, and then they usually do all these bizarre things like get down face to the floor and all that stuff and put your hands behind your back and all kinds of wild things. But she wouldn't leave. She'd still continue to help this person. And so this woman I was learning that all from her. And he said, we'd hide in the closet until all the nuns went down, and then they would continue with what they were doing. But they always got in great trouble because of that.
I have to ask, so the choice that she had to either be a nun or, you just mentioned that, is that because she was, in an orphanage? Is that what what was the reason?
It was a convent. It was an orphanage run by nuns.
Okay.
And part of the thing there, that they had to do once they became of age where they could work in the facility, they took care of the elderly. And so at the age of 15 it was, I know that, when people died and everything, they would have to, these kids would be wrapping the bodies in newspapers and they would be burying them.
Wow.
It's mind blowing to me, because I look at her and I'm like, wow, what an amazingly different childhood, and what the one that they're giving me.
Yes.
I felt so blessed when I found out more about her. Roxy.
She knows we're talking about some traumatic stuff. Stuff she knows.
Yeah, she feels it.
I mean, but that's incredible. And all this stuff, like you said, your mother never really talked about a lot of it, and that was their generation. And we are
they're like this generation's just like
imagine mine.
This hour is going to be up. You're going to say, okay, we're good.
Oh, we got to watch the cover.
And you're
always been to have more than less. That's what I gotta say.
yeah, and you're talking to two Jews that talk over each other all the bloody time.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Totally.
I'm sorry I interrupted, but keep going. It's just so fascinating because it appears that you heard all this secondhand, not from your mother, right?
Exactly. That's so true. I didn't even know until my mother passed away, actually, that at the funeral, that it was a relative that told me that from the other side that had been in from Philadelphia and told me that my mom was a nun. I was like, what?
Wow.
My mom was a nun? I said, for how
Wow.
long? They said she was for 6 months, and then they told her she had to leave. And so they just put those kids right out on the street with very little. She ended up
Wow.
going into a program to learn to be a nanny, and she ended up going to England and was a nanny. And when she met my father, her and another girlfriend had went down to there was an amusement park that they took a train to, and her and her girlfriend were sitting in this little pub, and I guess my father and another guy walked in, and he walked in and walked right up to her. I didn't know this until way later in life either. And that my father told me that my mother would, the train would leave, and she'd just be screaming and screaming and running down the track like out of a movie, screaming, crying every time. And he would come out on the weekends and see her out there.
Oh, is this
I
where the
know.
hot?
It's me going too.
Yeah, that's
because they didn't seem really lovey-dovey. There was something
yeah.
about that generation too. For the most part, there was only one family on my street where I would see maybe the husband and the wife would kiss each other or peck each other. I'd always see my dad would just kiss her on the cheek as he left, and that was all anybody saw back in those days. That was you would never think anything else. It wouldn't even occur to you anything else would ever be going on.
Absolutely. No, it was very just nice and cordial.
That is the generation of that time.
Absolutely. So because you have such a bright, beautiful spirit, and so outgoing, where did that come from then? If it's
I think my mother was always funny. My father was kind of a little bit of a comedian too, but also very, it was a military camp in my house, let me tell you.
Really?
My dad had the bathroom at a certain time in the morning. We all had breakfast. We had to be home for dinner. And then I think as we got older, he kind of let that slide because we were all involved in sports.
Interesting.
So
then, and
as far as the other, my mom always told me from a very young age, she said, you were born with an extra happy gene.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And I kind of believe her because, I go through tragedy and difficult times, just like anybody else on this earth. And I will go down for the count. People will say, I remember Chelsea Handler saying that on the show when she was interviewing me because I was giggling, and she said, you just laugh at everything. She goes, I bet you'd laugh at a funeral. And I just told her, I said, yeah, I do laugh a lot. And I said, but I do go down for the count and I come back up. I figured it out after all these years. I'm about a 3-dayer. If something really upsets me, I'm down for the count usually for 2 to 3 days crying about it. And then I pop back up and I find something to laugh about. And I told her, I said, I choose to laugh. And I've always been that way.
Wow.
But I could go down like hard. I'll pop back up, and then things just make me laugh. I find humor in everything.
But you're only human, and I feel like there's almost a certain amount of pressure that can be put on somebody who is expected to always be happy, right? Like I don't know if you feel that way, but it's like, well, everyone expects, Mary Murphy, she's always the chipper one. She's always happy. She's always. So, I mean, that's okay.
No problem.
She is dying to be up in the action.
Oh, I love it.
Love that. So real. We love that. We love that.
Oh my goodness. So
behind me, and this one now is wanting to know what's up.
Are they both the same breed?
Yes, they're both.
Okay.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So much fun.
Love.
I love animals. I love dogs.
Mhm.
If I'd be that person, you know, when I even get older, that I'd have a farm and just have just dogs and
I love
cats.
it.
Oh my God, what's this
I want
unconditional love?
alpacas.
You did not just say that. Oh my God, because I'm obsessed with
Oh.
alpacas. I am obsessed with alpacas. I have to do it. I have to pull it out. It even
There you
squeaks,
go.
damn it.
Oh
Squeaks.
God. Oh my God. Oh,
I
here
would
we
love to
go.
have an
Here we
We
go.
alpaca
have in
farm.
common.
Oh my God.
It's like a daughter to me. She lives up in Oregon. She has a farm, and you know, they're just starting out. You know, they've only been married a few years, but she has 10. Well, she used to have 10 hens. Coyotes broke into the pen,
Oh
but she
geez.
had 12 ducks, and they got 5 dogs, and they're going to
Whoa.
have, you know, their own cows and pigs and this, that, and the other. And they're just really trying to be kind of self-sufficient. They live on 29 acres. And
Wow.
out of the blue, you know, a couple of years ago, I just called her up and I said, "You got to have alpacas." So
Yes.
and I said, "You can't have one. You got to have 2. They'll just die of depression. They go in 2s." And she's like, "Okay." I said, "Yes, I'll get them for you." No.
Oh my gosh.
I have one called Mary and have one called Murphy.
There you go. And you were just there not that long ago, correct?
That's
In
right.
Oregon? Yeah.
The day after Christmas, I drove up there, and it was just great because, you know, she had her house had burnt down, like
What?
right before COVID.
Oh
And
Jesus.
she has a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old now. So you can imagine they were even a little bit younger and
Oh.
displaced. And I just wish
Wow.
we lived closer. And, you know, that's not easy for anybody to kind of, and, you know, you wear your welcome out at this parent and over here and at a friend's house. And it's really hard. Most hotels will kick somebody else, kick them out, you know, with 3 young children because they're noisy and they're loud.
Yeah.
They're
Yes.
just being
Yes.
kids. But so she went through that, and God bless her, she made it to the other side, and she was at
Wow.
home for Christmas and pretty much a brand new house.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Wow.
So all the kids in her they're just so happy to have a home again. And of course, there's tons of fires up there in Oregon this last year.
Well,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
we live I don't know if you have you been to Vancouver, Canada?
She
You
I
have.
have,
Of
yeah,
course you have.
She has,
we did
yes.
auditions there, and one of my best
Yes.
friends has a condo there as well. So I went up, and it overlooked the Puget Sound, and it was just where the ships come in.
Yes.
Yes.
Right
Yes.
there. That's
Yes.
sorry, that one was in Seattle. That was his overlooks where your cruise ships come in. It's
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Canada place.
breathtaking.
Yes.
Yes.
One of those that they revamped a building downtown and redid the condos. I don't know which one it is.
Yes.
But man, it's floor to ceiling glass, and it's just I
Yeah.
feel like I'm sitting outside in the wilderness or something. It's wild.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like the
Everybody, you
Shaw
know.
Tower. That sounds like the Shaw Tower actually, because it is all glass. But again, because Rachel, when you said has Mary been to Vancouver, yeah, because you were here doing
I figured-
auditions. And I wasn't
yes.
sure if you had been to Vancouver prior to that, or if that was the main purpose that drew you to.
I think
Vancouver
my
for the
first
show.
time was So You Think You Can Dance. That was my very first time. And
Yeah.
then I think we went back there twice. And
Yes.
and then after a while, I don't think they ended up going back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
All as the years go on, and when they start shortening the shows and everything like that. But I will just tell you, the Canadian show was amazing, and I love that they called me the honorary Canadian. I loved it, and I was almost on every show
Yes.
for a while there. And Sandra Fair, who has passed away, was executive producer. We ended up becoming good friends, and they had a home here in California in Montecito, and I would go up and see them. And it was that was one of the only female executive producers that I've ever worked for.
Wow.
And what I loved about her too, and because not that she's just a woman, but her attention to detail was like no other. Like the American show could care less what we wore, whether it looked good together or anything. I mean, it could look,
Yeah.
you know, with us sitting
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
She was hands on every person's outfit on that show, and she would have it hanging up in their position and did all four. And she wanted everybody to have a specific different look as opposed to everybody trying the same.
Yeah.
There was a time, I know the costume designer really well. We became really close friends, and they made everything from scratch there.
Wow.
The first part on the American show, it was bought. A lot of things were bought. He was like making everything from scratch. He had a team there on the set, and one time there was like 12 dresses to be done, like in a ballroom number.
Yeah.
It was a Viennese waltz, and they were all white, and she looked at them, and this was like one night before the show, and he said, "Nope, I don't like it. I want this color." And he's
wow.
Oh my gosh.
They were sewing all night long, but that's like, she just couldn't settle, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I loved about her perfectionism, and the director that they used too, I can't think of his name right now, but he was on the American show for a couple of years, and I really liked him. And in the first 2 years, I choreographed too, and he would allow me to, and nobody else did that at this time, but he would say, "Hey," I said, "Can I take a look at the angles that you're going to film my routine? Because I have it in my head how I want the viewer to see it." And he said, "Yeah." So every week when I would choreograph, and I only choreographed twice, I would rotate off the panel, and then I had a group number. But we would sit there and we'd go frame to frame, and he would know which cameraman he's going to tell. And the lighting guy too would talk to me, and he would allow my suggestions. You know, well, here I want this. I want him to look like he's coming out of a tunnel.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And,
do you find, there's a couple things that came to mind. Do you find as a woman okay, first of all, I'll backtrack a little bit with my train of thought. We've had a lot of people on the show before who are in, for example, the industry of sports, who are hockey players or those kinds of things. And they're, trying to rise above certain stigmas because they're gay in an industry that is predominantly male, or they're women who are chefs in a predominantly male kitchen, or those types of things.
Whoa, yeah.
So yeah, so there's some, but what's interesting for me is, like, you grew up in a very predominantly, like, you grew up trying to get it more into sports, but kind of getting, or drumming or those kinds of things, and getting, kind of, a big stop sign in front of you, like, no.
Swatted down.
Right. So they literally swatted down. But then you're ending up in an industry which I see is predominantly female, with dancing and ballroom dancing. Do you find, working with men, how are they perceived, and do you feel like there's a shift for men in the industry now? And then also, just because, as I mentioned, my uncle being in the ballet world, it's interesting because I always, just growing up as a little girl, and he's gay, and I'm like, well, all male dancers are gay then. They all have to be gay, right? Like, that's just kind of something that I thought. Like,
I think at one point, for the most part, that was probably true 40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's so different now.
Absolutely.
And ballroom dancing, for whatever reason, I would say most of the top 12, and we have like 5 major professional divisions. I would say most of the top 12 is probably straight.
Yeah.
Long and
I believe
hard
that.
aspects. That's also the infiltration of Russia and the Eastern Bloc and Western Bloc over there. It's different. I used to represent Austria for a couple years, and they grew up dancing.
Yes.
There was no stigma to at least dancing.
Yes.
And it wasn't about, when you graduated from high school, it really wasn't about, what college you were going to yet. Most people would ask, "Oh, what dance school are you going to go to this summer?" There was dance clubs and all over Europe. And it's so different than over here. I mean, I really have to attribute to Dancing with the Stars, for the fact that they use professional athletes, and these athletes like Emmett Smith, these stars are so well beloved, and I love them too, would stand there and say, "Well, real men wear pink," and they're
Yes.
And they're like, "This is harder than anything I've ever done in my life." And I also dancers kind of love that fact too, because most people that do see dancing, and it looks very easy to them, and that's because they make it look easy. We all know
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a professional dancer, and if you knew that most of the time people didn't realize that towards the end of the show, they only had 5 hours of choreography
Phew.
somebody.
Yeah.
And there's no way in the world I would do anything and go out and expect a performance out of me. I'd be
Mhm.
sitting there thinking, what the hell's coming next?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, and I would say it on the show, and I really meant it, is that it would actually, my brain would hurt after I
Mhm.
watched somebody that I knew that didn't have any trained professional lessons. Because most of the time, halfway through the season, some people say, oh, I've never had any training.
Yeah.
But we always find out. And
Interesting. Yeah.
and because sometimes you start to question somebody that's doing something so good that you really want to
Yeah.
find out, really? I mean, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a lot of people that, people like Cyrus, they were such the real deal that and if they did anything outside their style, which they never even had trained choreography,
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
the fact that those
Crazy.
could do anything would
Mhm.
they made me lose my mind. Because
Mhm.
I just couldn't believe it, let
Yeah.
alone give a little performance or make me feel something in a minute and 30 seconds. And that's why I do think
Yes.
So You Think You Can Dance was so extraordinary. Because
Yes.
Yeah.
when I saw people all over the world, they would be having the same emotion at that time.
Mhm.
It was just that's extraordinary. Like, I had grown men coming up to me in airports and every place else and said, "Really, you got me crying on that one,
Mhm.
Mary. Dunk on you." You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
say, "Well, our wives drug us into watching this show, but
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
like you." And they were almost like kind of having to whisper that around, and I
Mhm.
had all ages coming up to me. And then
Yeah.
love the fact that women wise, there was a lot of girls that were watching the show with their grandparents or their grandma, and I just
Mhm.
love that they
Yeah.
said, that's our time together. We get together every week during the
Yeah.
season, and we look forward to it when we get it back. And
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yes.
And people that are really sick
Yeah.
watch the show. I have so many people come up to me and say, "Yo, you really helped me get through cancer." I mean,
Yeah.
that really touches me. That because I'm only thinking about what's happening right
Yeah.
inside me, and that's those dancers dancing
Yep.
their hearts out and trying to do really the impossible in a short period of time, which is still,
Mhm.
it's just mind blowing. Mind
Yeah.
blowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's a couple things, kind of like how Rachel said, a couple things stood out to her. A couple things that I kind of want to dive into and that really I want to extract from your words of wisdom, your experiences. We'll see if I can articulate them. Uh, One being for sure, like I'm really curious to know more from when you got into dance and your career through that, beyond what we might hear or read in the public eye. But before going back to that, I'm really curious to know, as someone like myself that avidly has watched many shows and especially dance, and so you think you could dance from season 1 to whatever last season. I've noticed partially it's cultural and partially it's also just advocacy and social media and the next generation. But as someone that's very queer and very much about neutralizing gender, sexuality, and tradition of how roles are played in different industries, dance is one of those things that definitely in the past has had those roles. Like you have the lead or the follower, you have the cis male, the cis female, you have those types of cultures, which is a beautiful thing to respect and to appreciate. But what I'm wondering from your perspective, and with everything that's been coming up now about diversity, equity, inclusivity, about gender neutrality or body neutrality, I'm curious about the ways that you've seen, has this shown up in your industry, and has there been more stance for supporting that way people that are very talented, but they might not present themselves in the way that
Mm.
people might think traditionally, especially those that might be of a Gen X or a boomer generation, and they're so hardwired. So I mean that in real life, like in a studio or in a class, if it's a competition, or American reality TV. And do you have anything to share about that? Or
I think a lot of things have definitely changed in the course of, this, I think this would have been our 17th season. So in 16, we've seen our staff kind of grow, and I felt like everybody was learning things along the way. I felt that towards the end there was much more as far as being open and accepting of someone, where I think in the early years you might have heard Nigel just kill somebody. Lord have mercy, those first two seasons. But you have to understand where he came from too. He was known as Nasty Nigel on a television show, what was called British Rock Stars, which later on went on to be American Idol. And
right.
he was still playing that character when he came over. Now, was he truly like that? No, but he was really kind of vicious and mean in the first two seasons. And then he changed over the course of the time to,
he did.
I thought unbelievably so.
He did.
Probably after like the 6th, 7th, 8th season in there.
Yeah.
And I think all of us were, of course, I've always been kind of a proponent, like you said, and never really understood. I by the way, I grew up in a very bigoted household. My father, but you have to understand, hillbillies to themselves, they are, everybody's an outsider. My mother was not treated well by my grandparents, and I could not wrap my head around that. I was thinking, my mom's white and she speaks English, and why would they treat her like that? I don't get it. But she was a foreigner, and pretty much anywhere outside of that holler or that area of West Virginia, people would be treated that way. Of course, every side of that circle was family, and everybody talked with one another. Everybody was on the party line. Everybody had a phone.
Yes.
Everybody. Eventually, when they got phones, so I could never really, I didn't get that, and I don't know why I wasn't like that. My brother's a little bit still not too, they're much better. My father was very bigoted. Oh my gosh, against just about everybody, Jewish, Black, gay,
of course,
you name it. And I didn't really understand that, what it was about. I knew I didn't like hearing it. I knew before anybody talked about anything, and it made me cringe as a kid. My brothers probably didn't have the same feeling, and I didn't see anybody. And of course, in my town at that time, I'm sure there were people that were gay, but you would have never known it. My God, keep it a secret, because I'm sure they would have been treated horribly if anybody found out. But I don't even think at that period of time, that word was never really even around to me. I actually went to college and have a degree in physical education, and I'm sure that probably everybody that I was in all my classes with, I would probably say probably 80% of the women were probably gay, but I never knew it.
No,
I never knew it. I never talked. Nobody ever talked about it. I didn't know there was a problem of any kind of anything until my first. So by the way, I was going to be a physical education teacher and a track coach. I had no desire to be a dancer. I mean, I found dancing in college. I hadn't danced up until then. I was a maidrette. The first time I'd been in a remotely outfit that would be like, oh my God, I was as a maidrette my junior and senior year. So that's the first time that I controlled the time really well. Never took lessons. I was just following people, what they were doing. And had a maidrette. So I had the big pressure of throwing the big high toss. And then catch. Sometimes it wasn't pretty, but I caught it every time. And hearing that roar of the applause, I really like that. I was like,
of course.
Thinking, I did it, and I felt good that I was able to do it. And so when I went to college and I started dancing modern dance there, I liked it. And I thought I was thinking, wow, I started way too late. And the only next place to go for modern dance was New York City. I was such a country bumpkin. I was too afraid of that. And I ended up getting married at a very early age. I was probably 19 or 20. Muhammad was like 18 at the time. And so we were living in the married dorms and doing all of that, and so he forced me to move. I got 3 job offers immediately as soon as I graduated from the different schools I went, and I mentored
Oh,
and
wow.
interned, and I was all excited, but he's like, no, he didn't really want me to work. So he forced me to move to Washington, D.C. and said he had, of course he lied. He said he had a job at the Lebanese embassy. And so I went, and he would leave and go to Beirut. And during the summertime, I would just go in for, and work in the dance studio. And I walked into a ballroom dance studio. I saw a saying, like so many of us, it says no experience necessary. I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
I went in, and after 1 week of them training me for like 5-6 hours a day, they made me start teaching right away. Of course,
I read that.
Yeah.
do that in my,
Yeah.
but back then that's what they did. That's what a chain school does. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, you know more than they do. I'm like, okay. So
Jeez.
after about, and that's, by the way, was the first time I met a gay person. I
Oh.
actually had a conversation about it, my very first conversation. And I was invited to a party, and the one guy was showing me around, who he actually ended up being my partner for a little while. And
Oh.
he was showing me around his house and this and that. And we were upstairs and showing me the bedroom. And he said, yeah, that's me and Daniel. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? What? And I said, because this guy, Daniel too, is like tall, Cuban, one of the most handsome men I've ever seen. And I was like, what? I said, you mean you and Daniel are together?
Yeah, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The house. He goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You don't know. You don't know. I said, no, what? It's just like he was mind blowing to him, because he's in the big city,
yeah.
well, not me. I swear to God, I did not know. And he sat down, and I said, you mean you guys kiss?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I started crying, and I was like, gosh, oh, okay, wow. And then it turned out, one by one, I found out everybody in that studio was gay.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the week. And so and then it took me a little while. I was like, well, this person I maybe thought could have been, and this person I would have never known in a million years. It was really hard
Yeah.
brain around that. And that was really my first big education, and I loved everybody there. And I was like, well, there's no reason to treat anybody any differently. What you do is your own business.
Yeah.
But the manager was gay too. His boyfriend was a gay activist in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
He took me to New York City because he could see I was going to quit. It wasn't because of them or anybody. It was because the owner, who was straight, he was just the nastiest man alive.
Oh, geez.
I have never heard, one of my very first meeting, the way he was yelling and screaming and humiliating a couple of the gay kids, that I just hated it, and it traumatized me. And I remember going down into the basement of the dance studio crying by myself and thinking, oh, this is what to me, I was thinking, this is what the real world is now.
Right.
I've been sheltered. This is the city. Or not just the city, but I thought that's how businesses ran. Business before. So I was like devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. And I can't stand the way he's treating everybody. He didn't say anything to me. I think it was because he knew at that time my husband had money, and that I didn't need them. I didn't need to be there. And so when Muhammad left town, the manager said, you know what, I think you need to see something. And that's the U.S. Championships in New York City. And I said, oh, okay. So I went with him and his husband. And of course, it wasn't legal then, but he called him his husband. And And we went to New York, and it was like, and you probably read it because I've talked about it before. It was just like a movie. These big, massive doors opened at the Waldorf Astoria. There are 3-tier balconies and crystal chandeliers everywhere. And I walked in, it was crowded, and I took about 10 steps inside that ballroom, and there was about 25 couples swooping, and there were all hair and makeup and feathers and rhinestones and all this, which
Yep.
I was not. I was the biggest tomboy until I met Mohammed. The biggest, just sweatpants, t-shirts, and I didn't really need shoes. My feet were so used to running in stones. I didn't need it. And I was like, I looked at them. Haven't even sat down. I'm not even watching the rest of the competition. I just looked at them. I said, I'm going to be a professional ballroom dancer, and I'm going to be the United States champion. And they looked at me like, whatever. We were just hoping you'd stay at our studio.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my.
Wow.
back to Washington, D.C. Then I sought out the highest level instructors and charted my course. It was a very long course. I wasn't the most talented person out there for sure. I did not have the flexibility because of being a track runner my whole life. I didn't like to stretch out then. But I found my way and I kept at it. And
That's amazing.
I'll say that when I became an Austrian champion, and I was doing well all over the world. And that's not what I said. I said I wanted to be the United States champion. And so it was like,
Yeah.
really hearing somebody else's national anthem being played, it's kind of like,
No kidding. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, well, and at the end of my career, I danced with somebody for I think it was just 4 years, and worked my way up with an American to win the United States 9 dance championship. And so that very next day I retired, and I said, okay, now I've got to branch out. I've spent all my time dead broke in my life. And most dancers we live from paycheck.
Yep.
Actually, we don't live paycheck to paycheck. We live under the paycheck.
Yeah.
We may get paid $50 for a lesson, but we're going to spend $150 taking one from somebody we really want to take from.
Yeah.
And so you're always behind the 8 ball as a dancer, and and going to the major competitions like Blackpool in England or a U.S. championship are going to set you back. And I moved back to Ohio and danced there and had several different partners there. And I like those days because it was before you could see everybody in the world, where these kids, oh, you want to see the world champion dance? Boom, there they are.
Yeah.
You could take their choreography, or you can take a step back. When I was dancing, you couldn't afford much. And so you would take a lesson, maybe a couple lessons like every few months. These kids at my studio, we have kids that are 10 years old that take, 2 or 3 sessions 3-4 times a week.
Wow.
All these professionals now, they have all these coaches, they have so much access to other dancers around the world. You can study and watch other dancers. It's so different. We would be laughing and cracking ourselves up, choreographing and making up stuff ourselves. We have no idea if it's any good or bad or anything. We're just gonna have to put it together and then go out there and compete and how it works.
It must be so much, absolutely. It must be so much more stressful these days for kids because there is that much more competition. There's much more available, much more access to, getting those lessons, watching those YouTube videos and whatnot. Like, do you find, do you get an inkling at all, perhaps, from watching these kids? How is their mental health? Do you feel like mental health is a bigger issue?
It depends on the household too. I've definitely seen kids that are coming and going through a divorce, and parents that put these kids in the middle of it and try to tear them apart. And what it does, you just feel for them. You want to get involved. You're not in a position where you could. There's definitely been some children I'd like to take them away from their parents.
Yeah.
Happily done so because they were such amazing dancers. And I have mothers that live through their daughters, and tremendous stress on there. You know, they try not to show it in my ballroom, but I'll find, you know, go into the bathroom. I have a fairly large ladies' bathroom, and there'll be a mother in there, you know, telling her daughter what to do when it's like, you're not the dance coach,
Oh,
and
geez.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, you shouldn't be doing that. But
Yeah.
you know, it reminds me of how it's gotten to the point now that you're right there. I feel there is a lot of added stress where
mhm,
maybe when I was into it, and this certainly in the early years before I started being able to vie for higher positions, how much fun I had.
Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible fun. Where some of the parents now are, there's a lot of pressure on these kids, and there are a lot more kids in this country and in Canada dancing. And so that we are still moving, hoping, and trying to develop to get to the Olympics. So when it gets to that level, um,
Yes.
it will be extraordinarily more
mhm,
successful. But to become a U.S. champion, you wouldn't believe our amateur U.S. championships. I'll be judging them in March.
Oh, wow.
There will be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of couples that will just, you know, be in the 10, 12, 15, 16, 17 years old.
mhm,
And
Phew.
that you're just like to whittle that down to six and then to the winning couple is a lot now. Where
mhm,
when I first started teaching, there was only a few juniors in this country.
Yeah.
right.
I was teaching juniors back in Ohio, and I would take them to the U.S. championships and stuff like that to dance.
Mhm,
And now you just don't see that. Now we have, to give you an example of
Wow.
dedication from parents, we have a mother that has recently saw one of our students dancing with, she's around 10. She was dancing with her instructor at the Ohio Star Ball, which is a
mhm,
very large ballroom dance competition.
Okay.
And another mother saw her dancing. And so
mhm,
we went up to her and said, I want to try out for my son. They live in New York City. After that, she immediately flew here with her 10-year-old because she wants that girl to be dancing with her son. And
wow.
that's the kind of dedication and sacrifice
Holy
um,
cow.
that we've never really seen the likes of that in ballroom. Now we see it in ballet. Like if you remember Keon, when he left home, I think when he was 14,
Oh,
go to the Royal Ballet, and how difficult it was for the parents, but then
yes.
saw the tremendous, you know, ability that their son had. And that's still a lot for parents to
Mhm,
do.
mhm,
This is the first time in my own school that I saw this extraordinary. Now her husband's still in New York, but she has come out here. They've got him in school out here already and everything, and they are rehearsing, you know, daily and having lessons several times a week. I
Wow.
was just like blown away. I said, wow, this is what this is coming to. And
Yep.
especially for the people that can afford, they're going after the best and what they can get and what they can do and what
Yes.
provide for their child. Now, everybody's not the same. We're still trying to develop in the urban areas and trying to make dance more accessible to other people. And I had a program for quite a long time, but then it lost what little funding. I didn't really use much. I had a program for 8 years that we taught the teachers in the schools, and then they
Mm,
taught them. So then we'd have a big recital, and then I'd pull
cool.
have a performance group. And these were all underprivileged kids in San Diego.
Yeah.
And I know
mhm,
there's a program too that Dizzy Feet we now helped out in LA as
yep,
well.
yep,
And so just trying to get more, but I will say in my school, it's like now we have a couple competing kids that are Black, and we have a Chinese girl and a Peruvian girl.
mhm,
And so it's starting to happen,
yep,
you know.
Yes.
yep,
Um, but it's still a long ways to go. And that will be
yeah,
the number one reason why we're not going to be in the Olympics is because of the diversity. It's still mostly a white sport. And
yeah,
we slowly, and now we're starting to see Black professional ballroom dancers. We
yeah,
never used to have any Black pros across this country, and that is all happening now. And
mhm,
slowly but surely, and we're also having
Yes.
diversity. You know, our National Dance Council of America was dead set against two guys dancing together, or two women dancing together.
I was just gonna bring that up, actually. Yeah, continue,
or two
please.
women. Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
And that has finally changed. Our rules here in the United States gone and have made a ruling that it's now allowed. So we will eventually.
Wow.
I'm judged now since last June. I started. That's the first competition that I saw without being at a same-sex competition. This is the first time in a regular NDCA national event that we saw two men dancing together.
Wow.
Amazing. Because again, like as I mentioned earlier when I was asking you about trans identifying or non-binary identifying, again, like the construct of gender, the construct of sexuality doesn't make a difference, in my humble opinion, about one's capacity for what they can be as far as talent and movement and dance. And that includes whatever the trajectory may be, including reality competitive shows and where the trajectory is for inclusivity as a community, as a universe. But even in real life competitions that are non TV oriented, right, that are actually the competition you're speaking of, I'm really curious to know, will those movements continue to happen? Will people continue to honor the tradition but also embrace the humanity of it too, and how talent is genderless, right?
And sorry, but
at my event at Hollywood, I have two national dance championships myself with other business partners, and at Hollywood, that was the first time in Hollywood that they had seen this couple. The two men were out dancing, competing, and we've moved our language even now in ballroom to follower and leader.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are like, well, who's the teacher? Who's the pro? Well, it's always going to be the pro is going to be the one with the number on their back. And so we have developed that, it was very wildly successful at the Hollywood Dance Championships, and people applauded, and quite a lot of people stood up. And applauded and were very accepting, and because we don't know, this is all kind of happening just this last year. Because it was not allowed, period.
No.
We have asked for years, but there were some people that were on our national dance board that was keeps vetoing this down.
Right.
Now completely changed, and so the floodgates are open now, and women at many different competitions, and it's great because some of the female teachers are now dancing with women, and it doesn't even matter what their
what their orientation is,
what they recognize themselves as, because a lot of women too are more comfortable with other women, period, whether they're
mostly.
Go ahead.
Do you think that, because I feel it's interesting because I never even thought about this before. It's like, I never saw that on So You Think You Can Dance, but now I guess just since So You Think You Can Dance has been on hiatus, I'm going to call it hiatus because that's what it is. So much has changed, actually, like what you're just saying. So I could see, can you see that being a thing on So You Think You Can Dance, where they'll
had a same-sex couple.
You did?
So You Think You Can Dance.
Yeah, that's true. They did. That's true. Yeah.
Show.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And it's been, I think, 2 or 3 times. And Willem DeVries, he's actually a close friend of mine. He was the first person to come on with his boyfriend at the time and dance. Nigel wasn't too hep to it. He said something that he had backlash that he came back and struck hard on him. And I think that's at the time that you have to be very careful. And even though he didn't mean it, I mean, he's been surrounded by, he, as a male dancer, a straight male dancer, he's been surrounded by people his whole life.
For sure.
But he was just trying to be funny, and it wasn't. And people finally, nobody stood back. And I think that was a real big change on our show.
It was. I remember when that happened for sure, because again, like when you have the top 20 and again, like the top 10 guys, top 10 girls in this day and age, even if that's how those people identify, you would still just have the top 20 dancers. And if they're matched up with whoever, you might have a trans female with a heterosexual male. You might have a non-binary individual that can present however they wish because they fit the role of the piece that's assigned to them, right? So that's what I would love to see in any reality show, not just dance, but I speak to dance because we're talking about an industry that is really present and that is such a way of living. And in the day and age of inclusivity, there will be a lot of audiences that would be deterred or maybe feeling restricted from wanting to support any production that isn't inclusive, but also not tokenizing something just because it's meant to be tokenized. So it's about the talent and inclusivity. But if there's someone that is that talented and they happen to be non-conforming of any kind, it would be a shame and really unfortunate for in 2022 and onward for those people to not have the equal representation and chance to take a title from someone just because of how they are being authentically themselves.
Or you can go into the race as well with the token, like what we've already talked about. With that all kind of is all encompassing. But
totally.
Well, I know networks were always very conscious about, making sure there's so many, or trying to anyways, of being inclusive of how many Black dancers there were going to be. And I just didn't really, I didn't like that kind of talk at all.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted it to be, and like somebody was saying, but we don't. And I would have to fight for whoever was the best dancer, period.
Yeah, exactly.
And if that meant another white person, well, for me, that meant that I wanted you to, I felt that everybody had to earn their spot to be in that top 20.
Absolutely.
Whatever,
yeah, absolutely.
They have to be the best dancers.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
But I'm not an executive, and I wasn't, and that's just that's stuff that we have to, that they're trying to abide by and trying to do. But there was always different fights behind the scenes when we had, remember back in the day where we'd go back and you'd fight for your life and then we talk.
Yeah.
And, I would just I just had to fight for who I really felt was the best dancer.
Yeah.
And Nigel would always have to also, on top of his pressure, and there's tremendous pressure in a show like this, being an executive producer and also a judge. So
yes,
you have to wear two hats, where I'm all about the dancer. He's also about, he's got a level of people that are above him too that want this. But that's all I could do. I have to keep it real for myself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And fight for what I thought. Sometimes I won, argument as far as who should be on the show, and sometimes I lost. But maybe sometimes I didn't know the whole story about what happened there.
Yeah. Well, and also with entertainment and media too, you always have people that are bugging you in your ear. As you said, there's always executive producers, there's the network itself, you have the director, you have all these people that are basically pressuring you in some aspects, even though you're the face, kind of the messenger. Sometimes in these productions, you don't actually have the voice. You have the presence and the image, but you only have so much discernment after a certain decision might be made. Even on live elimination-based, results-based, public-based shows, there's still lots of different things that could be, doesn't mean they are, but could be skewed, and why people might have difference of opinion or wonder that didn't seem like the outcome that most would assume, even if it was completely factual too.
Involved into it, and one thing I will tell you is, because there's money involved, anytime there is not just the trophy but money, there is an organization called Standards and Practices, and they are looking at making sure that each individual is treated equally on the show.
Yes.
And I really like that. And everything I say too, like if I say something wrong or inappropriate or whatever, that group is down on you and saying, hey, listen, you can't say that like that, or whatever, So I love that, because the phone calls have to be real. Are being counted, and someone's overlooking that process as well, which I like. Other shows are just shows, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. They can make this. Nobody from day one, which I kind of wish I had a little more direction in the beginning. They just be you, you know, and you do what
Yeah.
you like. And okay, if we like it, you'll work again. If we don't,
Yeah.
move on.
Totally. I have to say something before I forget, because there's somebody from one of your seasons past that says hello from the Canadian version, who is a friend of mine.
Oh,
And that person, they didn't make it very far because of, I'll just tell you who it is. Spandy Andy is a friend of mine.
is
Do you
that
remember?
right?
Yeah. Spandy says hello because I was texting with him today, and he's like, we almost got him to surprise you in his tight and bright stuff coming into Zoom, but we thought, nah, it's all good. But he's still doing his thing, believe it or not, this many years later.
That's great. You know, we love characters, you know, and as the years went by, I think we got less and less characters, and some were being a character to get on the show, but then there's so many people, you know, like I don't know if you remember that character named Sex early on.
Yes, of course.
Oh, yes, I do.
Because I just rewatched it. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, yes, I do.
He was for real.
Wow.
And he tried out, I think, at least a total of 5 times. And by the end of his 5th one, he tried to fake us out that he didn't show up in New York, but he showed up, I think it was in Seattle, Washington.
Right.
Right.
And, one of my girlfriends that's a dancer in New York, she was in a store and she said, you know that guy in Sex? I said, yeah, of course. And she said, he's really like that, you know. I just saw him walking around the way exactly like how he's dressed, and long stringy baseball or basketball, whatever, hockey shirt.
Yeah.
His socks up to his knees and everything. She said he's really like that.
Wow.
I said, and his mother, living with his mother, he was and he's never left home.
Wow.
That and the fact that she got upset too if we didn't call him Sex. If we called him by his real name, she would get upset in the audience and she would stand up and say his name is Sex.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, you can't make this stuff up. And
No.
oh my. He was a professional dancer, and I said, well, where do you perform at? And he goes, in front of my mother. I said, well, you know, I can't really add anything more than that because
no. And
what else can I say? But that's a professional show, and I should have mother paying you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Totally. And one thing I do, because like it's crazy that it's already like kind of coming up on that hour, and we want to be respectful of your time as well.
Absolutely.
But one thing I wanted to share with you, and it's funny, my mother said, are you going to share this story with Mary? And I thought, I don't know. I'll see how I feel when we have Mary on. So I don't even know where to begin. It's very bizarre. But so I have my parents, obviously. My dad has a brother, and not very connected with him, especially now. But my dad's brother is he has a lot of character. Let's put it like that. And so my dad was on the phone with my uncle, and he was saying, oh, like I'm on a flight from, he lives in Toronto. So it's like from Toronto, maybe from Vancouver. I don't know. He was on doing a work trip, and he was sitting on his flight, and he had this incredible chat with someone, and he's going on and on and on and on and on. And then my dad says at the end, because he knows I love you and the show and stuff, he's like, and so, you know, my dad said to him, well, what was the person's name? And, you know, my uncle was like, Mary Murphy, I think. And I like lost my shit. I was like, what? Like my uncle was sitting on the flight with this incredible human, and it doesn't even give 2 craps, and probably has no idea who the hell she is. And I'm sitting here in my living room with the gay gasp at like 15 years old, like, what the fuck? Like you met Mary Murphy? What is this? So apparently you've met my uncle, and not that matters, but I was like, I have now 1 degree of separation from Mary Murphy. How creepy and odd is this? But it's incredibly inspiring.
That's crazy. That's so funny.
I know.
Was it in the United States, or was I flying back and forth in Canada?
I think you might have been flying back and forth in Canada, or it could have been an American flight that was going into Toronto. I can't remember. It was years ago, and it could have been the production of the show too. I have no idea. But I just found it very funny that like of someone that's completely, you would never expect to have any bone in their body to strike up a conversation and connect with someone in pop culture, and then also it's like, oh, I think their name was Mary Murphy, and I'm like. So anyway, I thought you might appreciate that.
Probably
Very
didn't have any
random.
choice. He probably had to talk to me because I probably wouldn't shut up.
Oh my God.
Well, maybe, but you know what though? Thanks for making my day. I don't know if you made his day, but I was just like,
Oh,
damn,
man.
that's real humanity right there, right in front of you, right in aisle
Oh my
6.
God. And we could talk to you for ages and ages. And again, we do want to be respectful of your time. As we kind of start to wrap it up, what do you want to leave our listeners or followers with? Is there anything that's kind of that you can talk about that is on the cusp of happening, or what are you doing now, or is there just anything that you'd like to kind of leave us with?
How can we support your
How can we
Tamale
support
train?
you? Yes, exactly.
You can just send all your love towards Champion Ballroom Academy.
Love it.
Having a dance studio has always been my base. I can say when I went up to Hollywood, about after 5 years, almost everybody up there tried to make me leave it and just throw that part of my life away. And it was a hard decision, but I was like, oh, they were like, oh, but if you come up here, you can do this and you can do that and you can do this and you can do that. And I was thinking, well, you know how fickle Hollywood is.
Yeah.
And no, I said, this is how I get back. I've never made a lot of money and sometimes no money in owning a dance studio. It has been my way to give back to my life and saved my life, you know, from that early marriage that was just so horrific.
Yeah.
And so it put me on such a journey in a life I never dreamed of, you know, going all over the world and then being part of, you know, So You Think You Can Dance and owning dance competitions. I just I'm like, how did that all happen? I still feel like Forrest Gump because I have all these amazing pictures of these amazing people, and there I am.
I love that.
I just like shake my head like, whoa, this is weird, but I like it, but this is awesome.
Incredible.
It's your life. Yeah.
It's your life. And part of one thing I wanted to mention as well is that how did you get into being part of the production of So You Think You Can Dance? Because I was trying to read or understand how that happened. I was wondering if you could just quickly shed light on like how that happened.
It's like getting into dancing in itself. I was minding my own business, teaching and doing my thing in San Diego. And originally, I actually got the call to audition for Dancing with the Stars.
Oh.
They had contacted our NDCA, our National Dance Council of America, and they asked them to nominate 10 to 12 judges for an audition. And so I was contacted and I didn't know what it was. And I said, want me to come to LA? I had worked on a couple movies and things like that and taught some celebrities. And so I went up to the audition. I was very good friends with Louis Van Amstel. He was on Dancing with the Stars for 8 or 9 seasons. And, but of course, we didn't have a lot of money or anything. And I said, this is what we're going to do. I said, we're going to act like we have the job already. I said, we're going to come to LA together. I said, we're going to stay in a fancy hotel. All right, we're going to eat a big fancy meal in one of those swanky places that all the celebrities go to. I said, then we're going to come back and we're going to put facials on and everything, get ready for our audition. And that's exactly what we did. And so we went in. They separated us and they put me in a room and they showed me the English version, which was Strictly Come Dancing. And I saw a little C7.
Yep.
The dancing that they showed me too was so horrific. And I was there inside my own head going, oh my God, this will never, ever work in this country. But I was like, well, if they want to give me the job, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Problem talking about any kind of dance. I'm certainly opinionated. And so they asked me what I would say on this or that, and I did. And I walked out and Louis walked out and we went home together and they didn't say anything at first. And meanwhile, Carrie Ann Arbor, she was on, they had green lit So You Think You Can Dance in such a short period of time that they ended up going out on the road with the producers. And Carrie Ann was that choreographer at the end of the day where she did a little jazz. She was a jazz dancer, and a little jazz number at the end of the day when they sent people to when they couldn't make up their mind. Would not. So You Think You Can Dance would not give her a contract, which I didn't have a contract for the first 2 years. I was week to week. I just happened to know that every week I'm still sitting there waiting.
Oh my God.
And then they would tell me, yeah, you're on the show again. Yeah. And I noticed that the other judges that were the original 5 judges and choreographers were rotating out and not having a choreography or anything. But I kept being asked. I was on every single show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. But I'm still waiting. Do I choreograph this week or do I judge? No, you're going to judge. Oh, okay. No, okay. And so I was just like, wow, what just happened there? And so I ended up, so Carrie Ann got the job on Dancing with the Stars. And I didn't really know who she was. And I was like, but she said, except for that, I knew she was a jazz dancer. I said, what the hell is that going on? And then it was literally 2 weeks later, So You Think You Can Dance called me and said, and interviewed me over the telephone. And he called me back 5 times, just chatting with me about this, that, the other. It wasn't Nigel, it was the other executive producer. Yeah. And he went back to Nigel and said, Nigel, I found the girl. And she's right here in San Diego. And they had me come up and we filmed the first show.
Awesome.
And the rest was history.
No kidding.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that though. And that other producer is Simon Fuller. Is that correct?
Well, Simon Fuller was creator.
Oh, creator.
Yeah.
Or if he was, I don't know if he got credit for executive producer, but it was Jeff Thacker is the producer that handled all the kids.
Right.
He was like the nuts and the bolts of making everything actually happen in the show. And he was the one that called me. And I never talked to Nigel until we met all of us judges that were picked at a dinner party, which we all got bombed at.
Awesome.
Wow. That is awesome. That is a perfect segment to wrap and to come together. I really do want to express my gratitude for you reaching out to my message when I basically cold messaged you. It never ceases to amaze me to just know that there is humanity and it doesn't matter where you come from, what your accolades may be, what you're doing. But when I saw your profile, I thought, you know what? I'm kind of like you said, I'm going to be a ballroom championship. Like I'm going to have a chat with Mary Murphy and me and Rachel are going to make it happen. Love it. Yep. So thank you for creating that.
It didn't take a while. I did like your persistence though. And I had a crazy, crazy, crazy fall. But anybody that's persistent, I always get back to because I feel like they were persistent. I need to call them back.
Oh,
well, thank you.
It's just because other stuff is coming your way all the time and you just forget. I'm also, by the way, which I'm still just in the writing phase of a show that's a comedy on dancing.
Whoa, so cool.
Yeah.
So
I'll keep my fingers crossed there. Of course, it's just in development. And so we'll see how it goes.
Amazing.
Mary,
amazing.
We cannot wait to continue to follow you and we will. And we also, fingers and toes crossed that the hiatus of So You Think You Can Dance ends at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Put that positive energy up there.
Yes. And we kind of like to ask a juicy question. And I have one in mind and you might be harder to answer, but what's juicier, tango or foxtrot?
Tango.
Oh.
Okay, why?
Why? There was always a sensuality that has built up around the tango and where its initial origins have come from. And by the way, which was basically 2 men dancing together in Argentina. It's so funny that supposedly the straightest men were practicing with one another and they would practice their moves so that they could go out and wow a female dancer at the time. But over the years, it's only the Argentine tango that's really kind of kept to that flavor of really the cat and mouse and the sensuality about the dance. If you saw today's international tango in close hold and everybody shaking their head around and you know, it's kind of violent, and it's like, where did this, and you know, like I think to myself, of course, the English developed that standard. I'm like, what is this tango? It doesn't look like a tango. American style is half of like the international plus paso doble thrown in there. It's kind of spicy,
Interesting.
but the sensuality of the dance is kind of gone now, except for the people that dance Argentine tango. For
Love
me,
it. I love it.
That was the perfect ending and the perfect answer.
Completely. And the last thing that it's not it's a question.
It's
It's
like
not an,
how
but it's not
many
an
last
answer.
things?
Because it's important, Rachel. It's important, God damn it. I don't want you to freak your dogs out, and I don't want your chandelier to freak out or your light fixtures.
Oh, I see.
Do you think we can get just a little hot tamale drink? Do you have it in you?
you have to earn it.
Oh,
I read and heard that. It was like,
Oh.
I guess we have it.
Bam,
I
bam.
had so much trouble with all the reporters. They're like, put me on the hot tamale train.
Oh God, I am
Yeah,
sure, man.
absolutely.
Yeah,
You have to earn it.
no.
Oh, right.
Now, I've met some people in the middle of, you know, early morning with interviews that will say, well, you scream for us. That's another whole thing that caught on that I was just like, what?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
One rip is that at that point in time, there had never been any judge on television that let one unbridled yell happen. And I let it rip. And all these reporters, are you going to yell for us, Mary? Are you going to yell? Are you going to
Oh
yell?
my.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
maybe you can see something I like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of
Awesome.
pressure, you know, people.
No kidding. No
That's-
kidding.
That should be on the hot. Then all of a sudden, Nigel and Kat, even everybody tried to hijack it and say that should be on the hot tamale train, shouldn't it, Mary? And then sometimes I would let them down. I'd say, no, they're on the platform. They're not on the train yet. And
Right.
took on a whole nother life, you know. Then there's people in the caboose. There's people in the conductor of the train, platform with their bags packed. There's people in the middle of the train. They moved up a notch. This people's in first class. And even Times wrote about it and said one season it says, "Oh, not enough people on the hot tamale train." I'm like, "What's happening here?"
Oh my
God.
God. They just can't take a fierce, gorgeous, confident woman speaking her mind and like actually just voicing, you know, it's like I've never heard like a woman super excited about something before.
That was only normal in my household.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Anyhow, thank you again, Mary.
You're very welcome. You guys are a pleasure to talk to, and good luck to you. And get in contact with me again sometime. Find out what's
Absolutely. Next time you're in Vancouver.
No, I do go up there.
There you go.
There you go. Well, never too far. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and we wish you all the best and continued success in your journey.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Mary.
Take care.
Ciao. Be safe.
All right. Thank you.